In the last few years, we've seen a significant increase in ransomware attacks. It's incredibly challenging to detect these types of attacks by relying on traditional antivirus detection mechanisms that you might have in your organization. And that's because these applications and these behaviors are generally seen in most organizations on a day-to-day basis. Attackers aren't using any sophisticated pieces of software like Mimikatz. They're using your own tools against you. These tools are generally whitelisted, and it provides a perfect disguise for threat actors. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can reduce your attack surface, enhance your security posture by using Symantec's Adaptive Protection, how you can control application usage in your environment, how Adaptive Protection will learn those behaviors from your users in your organization, so specific to you. We'll take a look at a typical attack chain process and how Adaptive Protection can disrupt it, and then we'll jump into the ICM console and we'll have a look at configuring the policies. Let's get into it. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the WastedLocker ransomware variant. Initial compromise here generally involves a user being duped into going to potentially a legitimate website, but even compromised websites. A typical method is via a Chrome browser update request. This could be from a phishing email, an attachment, a link in a messaging platform, inserting a compromised USB key. The infection vectors are numerous. Really all we want to look at here is the actual attack chain itself. So the zip file downloaded contains malicious JavaScript masquerading as a browser update. A second JavaScript file is then executed by WScript, and this will profile the endpoint reconnaissance gathering that will be used later in the attack. Active Directory queries, IP address information, antivirus software installed, services that are running, these sort of things. Windows scripting host will then launch PowerShell, and PowerShell will use PowerShell commands to download additional discovery-related PowerShell scripts. These were all related to information that was gathered during the profiling phase. And I always like to call this, it's not necessarily viral code that can be picked up by any of your standard defenses on your perimeter or on your endpoint, but it's almost like downloading the ingredients for a virus, and it's going to build them then on your endpoint. So PowerShell is then used to download and execute a loader from a command and control domain. The loader generally contains a .NET injector. The .NET injector, along with the loader, inject and execute in-memory payloads. The injected payload here is known as Cobalt Strike Beacon and can be used to execute commands, inject other processes, privilege escalation, person into other processes, upload and download files. Then initiates is psexec, and that is going to try and, certainly in this instance, to try and disable Windows Defender, but it'll also then start to stop any commands or any services that it discovered during the investigation phase or during the reconnaissance phase. After Windows Defender is disabled, psexec will then actually launch the actual WastedLocker ransomware variant itself, which then begins encrypting the data on the endpoint and deleting shadow volumes. So as far as the attacker is done, that's job completed. Okay, so we're going to jump into our first adaptive protection policy. This is one I created earlier, and the expectation is that you would create a policy, apply it to your endpoints or deploy it to your endpoints, and you will let it go into what's called learning mode for about 30 to 60 days. Now, I'm going to show you everything in the policy now, sort of review all of those different aspects. But we'll see here, we're showing 496 application behaviors across 69 applications. Symantec's threat hunt team are always continually adding new applications and new behaviors that they see out in the wild that have been used in ransomware attacks. So this number is constantly increasing. I think up to about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we were looking at maybe 300 behaviors across 40 applications. So we know that the threat hunter team are always working feverishly in the background to increase the number of behaviors and applications that we are able to use this tool for. But as I scroll down here, you'll start to see that we have a list of all the various applications. Now, we've discussed this before. The trusted applications are going to be applications that are generally used within your environment. So the entire Office suite is going to be there. We've got Acrobat Reader. One thing you will note, when we create a new policy, everything is in monitor mode. So all of the actions that we see here, we've got an allow action, we've got a monitor action, we've got a deny action. Everything is initially in monitor mode. So you can deploy this quite happily to your estate without any fear of any of your users being disrupted or blocked from any of their normal actions that they carry out. Towards the top here, we get to see that we've got two kind of primary metrics that we look at here. We see behavior activity prevalence. So this is how often these activities have been seen in your environment. We also get to see the policy settings. So we can see that we have 0 set to allow here. We are monitoring 496, and we have 0 set to deny here as well. So the idea, as I said, is you would deploy this policy across your environment, leave it for between 60 and 90 days. It learns those behaviors, and then it'll start making recommendations to you about what potentially you need to change in your environment. So specifically now, what I want to do is go through and look at the behaviors that we had spotted when we looked at the kill chain. And primarily those were Windows scripting host, PowerShell, psexec, and WMI. So if I scroll all the way down to the bottom here, and we'll start with WScript. So we know that the behavior that we'd seen was WScript launching itself, basically. WScript launching WScript. So we get to see here, if we scroll down, it is in here. This is quite a long, extensive list of behaviors, as you can see. But here we can see Windows Scripting Host launching Windows Scripting Host. So that's a behavior that we have the ability to control. We also have a Windows Scripting Host launching PowerShell. I think that's up towards the top here. Windows Scripting Host launching PowerShell. So another behavior that we've got the ability to control. So that's Windows Scripting Host. If we then go to PowerShell, we go to PowerShell, and we see here the behaviors that we wanted to sort of monitor here was PowerShell launching a Windows Scripting Host. So again, we can see it here. This is actually for C script. We have another one down below here for Windows Scripting Host. Down at the bottom here, so PowerShell launching Windows Scripting Host. We also talked about PowerShell reaching out to the internet to download content. So we can see that here, PowerShell accessing network via HTTPS or HTTP. So that was another one of the applications and behaviors that we wanted to look at. Another one was PSExec. So with PSExec, we've got the ability either to prevent it from being launched altogether, or we can actually control what the services can actually do. And again, here we're interested in PSExec launching PowerShell. And so we scroll down here, we can see PSExec launching PowerShell. And the last one was WMI. Again, if we scroll down here, we can see WMI, and we see that WMI launching to delete shadow copies. So those are the behaviors of the applications that we had seen in the kill chain that we viewed. We've seen here now that those entries actually exist in the application list and the behaviors of those associated applications within the adaptive protection policy. So that's all pretty cool. Now, that's great. We know we can go in and we can set those behaviors to deny. But do you want to go and do that manually? You probably don't. It's quite an onerous task. It's going to take you a bit of time to do that. And you might end up disrupting some of your users if you don't know if they've been using those behaviors or not. And this is where the beauty of adaptive protection starts to really come in. It learns your environment. As I mentioned previously, you can see here there's nothing learning at the moment because this policy is a little bit older. So this has already finished learning your environment. And what the eagle-eyed of you may have spotted already is above these deny buttons here, we always see a recommended, or we already see a recommended option. So basically, Symantec has said, okay, I haven't seen these behaviors across this environment over the 60 or 90 days that you've been running this across your endpoints. Therefore, you can quite safely set this behavior to deny because it's not going to interrupt or block any of your normal user activity, basically because we haven't seen it. The users aren't using that particular behavior. If a behavior was seen, it would be not recommended to go to deny. It has to have been not seen for at least 60 days in order for it recommended to move to deny. So again, as I said, now you could start to walk down here. You can set these manually to deny if you want. But again, given that we've got almost 500 behaviors here across these 69 applications, that's going to be a little bit of an onerous task. Now, again, as I said, this is where the beauty of adaptive protection comes in. We've got the ability to do a quick tune button here. So we can see here, I can press this single button and it's going to ask me, do you want to set all of these 494 zero prevalence options to deny? And I can go and say yes, and that will automatically go and set all of these behaviors to deny for me. We can see here then in our little sort of view, we can see that we're no longer monitoring. And we save that policy first. We save the policy, we reapply it out to our endpoints. And now we see here that we're only monitoring 2 behaviors, and the remaining behaviors that we had seen 0 prevalence of are now set to deny for 479 of them. That's very, very nice. It's nice and quick, and the ability to do that with a single click is very good. Now, remember, you can have multiple policies across your environment here. So you can have a policy that's going to be deployed to your standard users who aren't doing any admin tasks or that kind of stuff. You can also have a policy deployed to your IT staff. They may need to use different behaviors across your environment that your normal users wouldn't use. So that's all and well good. That allows us to go in and do this from within the policy. Now, so we're back now at our kill. You'll recall at the start of this video, we went through and we showed you some of the steps that were associated with the kill chain for WastedLocker. Now, we've had a look at our adaptive protection policies. We've gone through and we've configured a number of denies across the environment from 0 prevalence behaviors that we picked up on. So let's have a look and see now how adaptive protection would have disrupted this attack chain or this kill chain during its process. So one of the first things that we did was we stopped Windows Scripting Host from launching itself. So Windows Scripting Host launching Windows Scripting Host. So that's step number 1. We would have stopped this variant pretty much in its tracks at this point. But we also stopped WScript from being able to launch PowerShell. So another block would have occurred here. We also prevented PowerShell from connecting to the internet and downloading anything over HTTPS. We also did some controls over PSExec, so we could just prevent PSExec from being launched altogether, or we could have said that PSExec is not allowed to launch PowerShell. We can prevent PowerShell from invoking WMI, and we can, lastly there, step number 7, we can prevent WMI from actually launching to delete volume shadow copies. So now in this instance, the attacker would not get what he wanted at the end of the day, because there's over 7 different positions there, or 7 different steps in that kill chain that we would have been able to block using adaptive protection. And this shows you the power. Now, again, it's not important about this ransomware variant. There's over 500,000 ransomware variants or attack chain steps that are recorded in Symantec's Global Intelligence Database. And these will all help and assist you in preventing these type of attacks in your environment. The next thing I want to look at is what's called the heat map. So, looking at the policies in there, it's not necessarily easy scrolling down through all of those different behaviors to see what's going on. But Symantec have developed what they call the heat map. Now, this is, again, another great tool we get to see everything that's associated with our adaptive protection policies. Down the left-hand side here, we get to see all of our various applications, and along the top, then we get to see those behaviors. Now, this is kind of color-coded. So 0 prevalence behaviors are going to be colored in this dark blue. Low prevalence is going to be in a light blue. Medium and high are obviously in sort of yellow tinges, lit colors there. And if any of the applications are still learning, then they will be showing up as this purple color. We also get to see anything that's in deny mode, basically is going to have an X on it. Anything that's going to be in allow mode is going to have a little tick box, and anything that's monitor is going to have this looking glass. Now, as we hover over any of these behaviors, we can get to see, let me scroll down a little bit, make that a little bit clearer to see for you. If we hover over any of these sort of cross points here in this heat map, we can get to see what the behavior is, what is currently set. If we can see if those behaviors have been seen in any devices, again, this might be after we've decided to block it. If those behaviors are then being used by a malicious actor or some sort of a variant that is deployed across your environment. If we scroll down, we'll also get to see if we have any hits here. So this is a behavior that is currently set to deny. But you can see it's got this little triangle icon on it, basically indicating to me that some event has occurred here and this behavior has been blocked. And again, we can see it was in our workstation group. This behavior was blocked. I have the ability to click on View Events, so we can drill down further to look and see actually what that event was, assuming it was recorded here. Again, we get to see full details. This can be drilled into. We can scroll down and see full details about what actually occurred here. Again, we're told at the top, this PowerShell creating non-portable executable batch jobs. So we can scroll down, we can see actor command line, we can see the process name, we can see parent process information. We can get to see what the disposition was here. We see that the action was blocked. We get to see what policy was associated with it. So lots of granular, detailed information that we can gather through the heat map. Now, one other component that I didn't touch on is the ability for you to create exceptions for the deny operations that you've got. So not only is it good enough that we can go in and set these behaviors to deny, but if there are particular behaviors that have a certain command line that you do want to run in your environment while blocking all other adaptive behaviors of that associated application, we can do that as well. This is where we go into our manage exceptions. And basically, if you have a specific command line, so PowerShell is not allowed to launch WMI or PowerShell is not allowed to launch Windows scripting host, that's going to get blocked unless it has a very specific command line associated with it that you might use internally. That gives us the ability then to block behaviors that we don't want to see in the environment, but allow the same behaviors when we have a specific command line associated with them. Okay, so also in the heat map, we have the ability to do something quite cool. We can go in and we can have a look at behaviors commonly used in ransomware attacks. So these are some of the most common behaviors that Symantec's threat hunting team have picked up, and we can see how these behaviors have been controlled in your environment. Basically, are you denying these behaviors that are commonly seen in attacks at the moment? So I've gone into my threat filter there, and I've selected I've selected behaviors commonly used in attacks. And as we scroll down here, then we can see any of these behaviors, the associated application and the behavior, and we can see whether or not we've got those set to deny. So in the instance of this particular, all of these 12 or 13 different attack variations, we can see that we've already got these behaviors set to deny. We can also, at this stage, look at a particular attack type. So if we're going to be looking at Bumblebee, for example, again, this is going to show us what behaviors Bumblebee might utilize in the environment and whether or not we've already got those set to deny in our policy. So adaptive protection is just one of the core components of Symantec's security stack. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to know more information about any of the other components. And also below, you'll find a link to an ebook and 10 misconceptions surrounding Symantec security. In this ebook, members of our award-winning Symantec security team that includes multiple Symantec Knights has a compiled list of 10 misconceptions we've encountered regarding Symantec.